Every generation is to get a little bit further back from what was taken. And right now, of course, it's our language and culture and our history being taught in a school.
For years, the origins of type O blood have puzzled scientists and historians alike. A genetic mystery stretching back thousands of years. Countless theories tried to explain how this blood type became so common, especially among indigenous peoples of the Americas, but the full story remained just out of reach. Then, in 2025, everything changed. New discoveries shattered old assumptions and revealed a complex tale of ancient migrations, surprising encounters, and deep genetic connections that no one saw coming. What did scientists uncover about type O blood that finally solved this centuries-old riddle? Let's dive into the breakthrough that's rewriting the story of human history. An ancient clue in our veins. Long before colonizers redrew the map of the world in the 15th century, a quiet but powerful marker of human history was already flowing through the veins of millions. It wasn't gold, or land, or language. It was blood, and not just any kind, type O blood. Found in staggering concentration among indigenous peoples of the Americas, type O blood carries more than oxygen and nutrients. It carries one of humanity's oldest, most persistent mysteries. It's the most common blood type in the world, yet somehow, in some parts of the Americas, it's almost the only one. Up to 100% of certain indigenous populations have it. That kind of purity is rare in biology. Scientists aren't just interested, they're baffled. Because type O isn't just common, it's also the least likely to mutate. It resists change. It doesn't mix easily with other types. It's the outsider of blood, quietly surviving while everything else revolves around it. Blood types aren't just labels. They're a system built into our biology. Human blood is classified into 4 main types: A, B, AB, and O. What makes them different comes down to antigens, which are proteins and sugars sitting on the surface of red blood cells. Type A has A antigens, type B has B antigens, AB has both, and O has none. That absence is exactly what makes type O so special. Without those antigens, O blood is less likely to cause an immune reaction when transfused into someone else. That's why it's called the universal donor. It's the go-to blood type in emergencies because it plays nice with others. But type O does more than save lives. It also holds evolutionary advantages. Scientists think people with O blood may have been more resistant to certain diseases. There's even evidence that it offers more protection against severe infections like malaria. While this seems more relevant to Africa than the Americas, it still hints at why type O might have survived, while other types faded out. When researchers look at the distribution of blood types around the world, they find something strange. Indigenous groups across North, Central, and South America overwhelmingly have type O blood. In some tribes, the frequency is 90% or higher. The global average is closer to 62%. That's not a small difference. That's a whole evolutionary fork in the road. The reason for this isn't totally clear, but one theory stands out. Thousands of years ago, small groups of humans are believed to have migrated from Siberia into North America by crossing a land bridge called Beringia during the last ice age. If those groups carried mostly type O blood, and they remained isolated for generations, it would make sense that the type became dominant. Isolation plays a big role here. For thousands of years, the people of the Americas were cut off from the rest of the world. No new blood types were introduced, no outside mixing. This kept the type O gene pool intact and highly concentrated. Environmental survival and blood. Some scientists believe there's more to it than isolation. Type O blood might have helped early Americans survive in tough environments. In mountainous regions, where oxygen levels are lower, people with type O blood might have had a slight edge. Their blood could have been better at delivering oxygen under pressure. That survival advantage, even if small, could have made a huge difference over time. In harsh conditions, Even minor genetic benefits can shape entire populations. Looking at where blood types are most common is like looking at an ancient travel map. In Africa, where humans are believed to have first evolved, type O is also widespread. As people migrated to Europe and Asia, other types like A and B became more common. Type A took over Western Europe. Type B rose in Central and Eastern Asia. This shift wasn't random. It reflected new environments, diets, and perhaps even social changes over thousands of years. When ancient humans first crossed into the Americas, they didn't just carry tools or hunting skills. They brought something even more powerful. They carried blood. Specifically, blood with the type O gene, which would eventually dominate the genetic landscape of entire continents. Over time, this gene didn't fade or dilute. It grew stronger, more widespread, and today, it remains one of the most consistent genetic markers in indigenous populations across the Americas. Once those early communities settled, their contact with outsiders dropped to almost zero. Without new groups coming in, the introduction of new genetic traits slowed down. That isolation acted like a time capsule. With no fresh variants mixing into the population, type O blood stayed put. Then nature did the rest. Certain diseases and environmental challenges may have put pressure on the population in ways that favored people with type O blood. Over time, those with type A or B likely faced more health risks or were simply less likely to pass on their genes. The result? Type O didn't just survive. It became dominant. Other remote groups around the world have high rates of specific blood types too. In some Pacific islands, for instance, people also show strong patterns linked to isolation and migration. But what makes the Americas different is how overwhelming type O's presence is. No other region has such a high percentage across so many different environments, from the icy north to the humid Amazon. That kind of dominance raises questions not just about survival, but about how migration and adaptation unfolded across the Western Hemisphere. The story of type O begins with the Ice Age, as people moved from Asia into the Americas. Likely across a land bridge in what is now the Bering Strait, they brought with them a limited set of genetic traits. One of those was the gene for type O blood. Over thousands of years, that gene spread through every corner of the continents. Some scientists describe it not just as a trait, but as a marker of adaptation, a sign that early humans had what it took to survive in unfamiliar territory. Evidence in the data. In the 1980s, researchers in Arizona ran a major study on Native American communities. The results were striking. 99% of participants had type O blood. This wasn't just a local phenomenon. High rates of type O were later found in communities from Canada all the way to South America. Scientists started asking why this specific type became so widespread. The answer pointed back to natural selection. Living in harsh environments meant constant exposure to new threats. Diseases, food shortages, extreme weather. These weren't occasional problems. They were a way of life. Type O blood might have offered advantages. Its lack of A and B antigens possibly reduced vulnerability to certain infections. That alone could have helped people with this blood type survive more often, especially during outbreaks or times of environmental stress.
And the very earliest symptoms of Alzheimer's disease can be picked up in people.
As communities moved farther into the continent, those carrying type O may have had an easier time adapting. Over generations, this created a feedback loop. People with type O survived, reproduced, and passed on their blood type again and again. Slowly, the gene pool tilted even more in favor of O. Type O blood tells a story of more than just endurance. It also highlights how people stayed connected. Across thousands of miles and countless generations, this shared blood type acted like a quiet thread running through indigenous populations. It became a biological signal of shared history, one that modern DNA research has now confirmed. Advances in genetic analysis have traced bloodlines and migration patterns with incredible precision, all pointing back to the early days of human life in the Americas. This history matters in ways that go far beyond genetics. In medicine, type O blood plays a critical role, especially in emergency care. Hospitals rely heavily on type O, particularly O negative, which can be used for any patient regardless of their own blood type. This makes it essential during surgeries, trauma cases, and natural disasters. Any situation where doctors don't have time to check a patient's blood type before acting. O positive, while not as universal, can still be used in many cases where the patient has a positive Rh factor. Because of these traits, both types are constantly in demand. The problem is that many indigenous communities who have high percentages of type O blood often face barriers in accessing medical care. Blood donations are low, and supply chains don't always reach remote areas. This creates a frustrating contradiction. The blood type is there, but not always available when it's most needed. Type O blood is known as the universal donor. It can be safely given to people with any blood type, which makes it life-saving in emergencies. But this special ability also causes a big problem. It's always in high demand. Hospitals everywhere rely on it during surgeries, accidents, and natural disasters. That means keeping a steady supply is hard, and shortages happen often. Health systems around the world struggle to manage the balance. They must keep enough type O blood ready for sudden emergencies while also meeting everyday medical needs. This pressure is constant, and it affects how hospitals and blood banks operate every day. Challenges around the world. The importance of type O blood goes beyond its use in transfusions. Researchers are learning that blood type might affect a person's chances of getting certain diseases. For example, people with type O blood may have a lower risk of heart disease. They may also react differently to infections compared to people with other blood types. If scientists fully understand how blood type links to disease, it could change how doctors prevent illness and choose treatments. It opens the door to personalized healthcare based on genetics, not just symptoms. Type O blood is not evenly spread across all populations. Some regions have fewer people with this blood type, and in areas with limited healthcare, access can be even harder. This raises questions about fairness. Should someone's survival depend on where they live or what blood type they were born with? To solve this, experts suggest increasing blood donation rates, improving how blood is stored and shared, and building stronger partnerships between countries. These steps could help close the gap and give everyone a better chance in a medical crisis. Scientists are already working on new ways to deal with these challenges. They're exploring artificial blood, better blood typing tools, and even gene editing. But even with these advancements, type O blood will remain a key part of emergency care for now. Its natural traits are still unmatched in real-life situations where time and safety are critical. There's another reason why type O blood matters, and it comes from the past. Many Native American communities, especially those living in tough environments like high mountain areas, have a very high rate of type O blood. This has led researchers to wonder, did this blood type offer an evolutionary advantage? In places like the Andes, where oxygen is low, people needed to adapt to survive. Their bodies changed over generations. Many of them also had type O blood, suggesting a possible link between this blood type and the ability to live in low oxygen environments. One theory says type O blood is slightly thinner than other types. Thinner blood could move more easily through the body and deliver oxygen more efficiently. In high-altitude areas, this could make a real difference. There's also some evidence that type O blood might offer better protection from certain diseases. For instance, people with this blood type seem to be less likely to get severe malaria. While malaria was not a major issue in pre-Columbian America, this idea supports the belief that lacking A and B antigens might help fight off other types of infections too. Some scientists also believe blood type may affect metabolism. Indigenous diets were very different across regions. Some focused on seafood, others on corn or meat. Research suggests type O blood might be better suited for digesting high-protein, high-fat diets, like those found in early hunter-gatherer societies. In tight-knit indigenous groups, working together was essential. Type O individuals may have been quietly valued more during childbirth emergencies or injuries. As universal donors, they could help others without needing exact matches. That might have even raised their status or improved their chances of having families, making their blood type more common over time. Of course, no single theory explains everything. The advantage likely came from a mix of factors: environment, diet, diseases, and community needs. But the patterns are strong enough to keep scientists asking questions. Tracing ancestry through blood. In today's world, genetics has become a powerful tool for learning about ancestry. By studying blood types and DNA, researchers can trace the movement and evolution of ancient populations. This has been especially useful for Native American groups, where many people have stories passed down through generations about their roots. DNA technology has helped many confirm those stories. In some cases, it has even found new family links. This kind of testing gives a deeper connection to one's heritage, especially for Native communities, where the bond between land, family, and history is deeply personal. For example, the family of Sitting Bull, a famous Native leader, was able to confirm their ancestry through DNA testing. It showed how modern science can support and preserve cultural identity. Some genetic markers are found only in Native American groups. These markers connect directly to the first people who lived on the continent, allowing their descendants to build a stronger sense of identity and history. By studying these markers, researchers also learn more about how people moved, adapted, and built societies long before written history. And for individuals, this knowledge is not just science, it's a meaningful piece of who they are. When Europeans in the modern world start exploring Native ancestry through DNA testing, it's rarely just a fun science experiment. For many, it's about finding a piece of themselves that history tried to erase. It's not simply curiosity, it's an emotional journey to reclaim identity, language, and culture that colonization forced into silence. DNA is now helping people rebuild links that were once thought lost forever. For those trying to understand how they fit into Native communities today, this connection is more than just symbolic. It can be the beginning of a deeper cultural involvement, learning ancestral languages, participating in traditions, and reconnecting with a wider Native identity that was denied to earlier generations. Discovering Native ancestry through DNA also has very real-world consequences. In some cases, it can help individuals access certain rights, resources, and recognition given to Indigenous people. These aren't just abstract benefits. They can shape lives, opportunities, and even legal status. One striking example is Leo Lapointe. His DNA results confirmed something his family had long believed. He was a direct descendant of Sitting Bull. That single scientific result became both a personal discovery and a public confirmation of historical connection. His story shows how this technology brings together the past and the present in a way that's emotional, powerful, and deeply human. But this isn't just a feel-good story. DNA testing raises some serious ethical questions. The excitement of discovery can sometimes distract from the complicated reality behind genetic information. Questions about privacy, consent, and control over DNA data are especially important when it comes to Indigenous communities, many of whom have already faced centuries of exploitation and erasure. It's also important to remember that cultural and tribal identity isn't defined by DNA alone. Being Native isn't just about having certain genetic markers, it's about community, culture, language, and shared history. So when people rely only on test results to claim Native identity, it risks reducing something sacred into something commercial. When heritage becomes a business. As DNA testing becomes more popular, the business side has sparked debate. Ancestry kits are now part of a growing industry, and some critics argue that companies are turning genetic heritage into a product. The question becomes, who gets to access this information? Who profits from it? And are Indigenous voices being respected in the process? If this technology is going to help people reconnect with their roots, it also needs to respect the communities whose histories are being uncovered. Otherwise, DNA testing risks repeating the same mistakes as the past, taking from native people without giving anything back. DNA hasn't just changed how we understand recent ancestry. It's also changed how we view ancient history. Tracing long-lost family trees has become more accurate, even letting people explore prehistoric connections with early human relatives like Neanderthals and Denisovans. Denisovans, a mysterious branch of ancient humans, are still being studied because scientists can't quite decide whether they count as a separate species or just a different group within early humans. What we do know is that both Denisovans and Neanderthals share a surprising number of similarities with modern humans, enough that many researchers consider them subspecies of Homo sapiens. These groups weren't as distant or primitive as we once assumed. They had unique skills, complex brains, and adapted well to their environments. The idea that Neanderthals were unintelligent is now being rejected by science. Evidence shows they had advanced tools, social behaviors, and possibly even art and language. Neanderthals didn't vanish because they were less evolved. Their decline happened around the same time our own ancestors, Homo sapiens sapiens, began to spread across the planet. Around 40,000 years ago, Neanderthals and Denisovans started disappearing. Why that happened is still a major scientific mystery, but understanding it is essential to the larger story of how modern humans became the dominant species on Earth. Through all of this, DNA continues to play a leading role, not just in looking backward, but in helping people today understand who they are and where they come from. It's science, but it's also personal, and in many ways it's rewriting how we tell the story of humanity. Sometimes, research takes unexpected turns. A study that didn't set out to explore why Neanderthals vanished ended up offering new clues about their extinction. By looking closely at the shared traits and genetic links between Neanderthals, Denisovans, and modern humans, scientists gained fresh insight into what might have caused Neanderthals to disappear. One of the most interesting findings about Neanderthals is their culture. Archaeologists have uncovered signs of art, skilled craftsmanship, and even symbolic behavior among Neanderthals. These discoveries challenge old ideas that painted Neanderthals as simple or less intelligent. Instead, they show a group capable of complex thought and creativity. Genetic research adds another layer to this story. Modern humans carry traces of Neanderthal DNA, which means the two groups not only lived side by side, but also interbred. This interaction likely influenced both groups and contributed to the diversity we see in human DNA today. All of this reveals that Neanderthals were not just primitive beings who disappeared because they were weaker or less smart. They were complex and adaptable relatives who lived alongside our ancestors for thousands of years. Recognizing their role in human evolution helps us better understand the long and remarkable journey that made modern humans the dominant species on Earth. Crawfords DNA. A recent DNA test has surprised scientists with its depth and detail. Researchers at the Cellular Research Institute traced the ancestry of a man named Crawford, who lives in Harb, Montana. What they found goes beyond earlier expectations and could change what we know about human history in the Americas. Harb is located within the Blackfeet Indian Reservation, a huge area covering more than 1.2 million acres in northwest Montana. The Blackfeet Nation is one of the largest Native American tribes in the United States, with over 177,000 members. There are also Blackfeet communities in Alberta, Canada. The rich culture and history of this region make it an important place to study human migration and ancestry. The common theory is that the first people to arrive in the Americas came from northern Siberia, crossing the Bering Land Bridge thousands of years ago. But Crawford's genetic results tell a more complex story. His DNA reveals patterns that challenge earlier ideas and open new questions about how humans spread across the world. This discovery is not just about one man's family history. It offers new insights that could change our understanding of global human migration. Crawford's connection to the Blackfeet Nation adds a living cultural context to this scientific breakthrough, showing the strength and resilience of indigenous peoples. In a world where cultures and populations are constantly changing, one man's genetic heritage opens a window into a much larger story, one that connects us to the deep history of Native American peoples. Crawford's DNA test isn't just a personal journey. It is part of a bigger puzzle that researchers are piecing together to understand human migration and ancestry. By tracing Crawford's genetic roots, scientists reveal complex stories stretching across centuries. This work reminds us how intertwined our histories really are, shedding light on the incredible journeys that have shaped human identity. In learning about Crawford's background, we not only honor his heritage, but also deepen our understanding of the rich and diverse history shared by all people. Scientists have long been curious about the origins of type O blood in Native American populations. It wasn't common, but appeared occasionally in certain families. Where did it come from? Legends speak of a traveler from a distant place, a stranger with light skin and blue eyes, who arrived among the tribes long ago. Some saw him as a lost soul seeking refuge. Others whispered he was from another world. His arrival matched the first appearances of type O blood in these communities. Over time, the story of this stranger became part of the tribe's history. Some believed he brought blessings, while others thought his family line brought misfortune. The true answer remains hidden, buried beneath generations of stories and time. The mystery of type O blood persists. Lake Baikal. Lake Baikal in Siberia is more than just the world's oldest and deepest freshwater lake. It has been a vital meeting point connecting East and West through genetic and cultural exchanges for thousands of years. This connection goes back to the Paleolithic era and lasted into the Bronze Age. Some scientists believe the people living near Lake Baikal might be the ancestors of modern Native Americans. The popular idea that the first Americans came to the continent by crossing a land bridge from Siberia to Alaska is widely accepted, but it's not the whole story. A National Geographic article from 2018 raised questions about how humans first reached North America. Did they walk across the Bering Strait, travel by boat along the coast, cross the Arctic ice? Or, as some Native American tribes like the Navajo believe, were they always here? These different ideas show how much we still don't know. Lake Baikal, with its clear waters and unique wildlife, also holds deep human history. Archaeological finds suggest people lived along its shores as far back as 500,000 years ago. Early humans depended on the lake for food and shelter. Later, Lake Baikal became a key hub for trade and cultural exchange. Ancient routes crossed the region, allowing different groups to share goods and ideas. This helped societies grow more complex and develop new technologies, including advanced metalwork. One of the most fascinating parts of Lake Baikal's story is its role as a place where people from both the West and the East have come together for thousands of years. Along its shores, different groups met, mixed, and shared their genes. This long history of genetic exchange has shaped the populations not only in Siberia but also far beyond. Scientists continue to debate how Lake Baikal connects to the history of the Americas. Some believe early humans crossed from Siberia to North America over a land bridge at the Bering Strait. Others question this and suggest different ideas. Some propose that ancient people might have traveled by boat along the coast. There is also the belief held by some Native American tribes that their ancestors were always here. Simon Worrell, a researcher, has looked closely at these alternative ideas. He points out how complex human migration really is. He encourages people to rethink the usual stories about how humans spread across the world. The story of Lake Baikal is about more than migration. It is also about how people adapted to changing environments, shared cultures, and created diverse genetic lineages. Even now, as scientists learn more, Lake Baikal remains a powerful symbol of survival and connection across thousands of years. DNA evidence shows that Native Americans and Polynesians interacted about 800 years ago. This contact happened across huge distances of open ocean and left clear genetic marks in today's populations. This part of history often gets overlooked because the main story focuses on European conquest. The idea that Polynesians and Native Americans had maritime contact long before Europeans arrived has fascinated scientists for years. Supporters of this idea point to the discovery of New World plants, like sweet potatoes and bottle gourds, in Polynesian archaeological sites. These plants do not grow anywhere else outside the Americas before Columbus. Even though some genetic studies gave mixed results, recent research has strengthened this theory. Scientists found shared segments of Native American DNA in people across many Polynesian islands. This suggests a single meeting between these groups happened, leading to marriages and children with mixed heritage. Statistical studies also support this, showing that this event occurred around the time Polynesians first settled those islands. Using computer models, researchers traced this Native American DNA back to what is now Colombia. This discovery adds a surprising chapter to the story of human history, showing how far people traveled and connected. In 2025, scientists resolved a long-standing question about type O blood. Through extensive genetic research, they identified previously unknown variations within the ABO gene cluster. These variations explain the distinct properties of type O blood, including how its antigens influence the immune system, disease resistance, and compatibility during blood transfusions. The study also provides insight into why type O blood is particularly prevalent among indigenous populations of the Americas. The genetic differences appear to have given early human communities a survival advantage against specific infectious diseases. This advantage likely contributed to the widespread presence of type O blood in these populations and played a role in their development and adaptation. Beyond deepening our understanding of human evolution, this discovery has important medical implications. With better knowledge of the genetic variations that define type O blood, healthcare professionals can improve the accuracy of blood typing and increase the safety of blood transfusions. Additionally, the research may help predict how patients with type O blood respond to certain infections and treatments, allowing for more personalized medical care. Overall, the findings demonstrate that type O blood is not simply a universal donor type, but a complex genetic trait that has significantly influenced human health and history. This breakthrough marks a major step forward in both genetics and transfusion medicine, opening new avenues for research and clinical practice. The mystery of type O blood has finally been cracked wide open, revealing a story that stretches across ancient lands and vast oceans, one filled with unexpected encounters and survival against the odds. But what does this really mean for our understanding of human history? Could there be even deeper secrets hidden in our DNA waiting to be uncovered? Drop your thoughts in the comments.